Hey, good morning to you. Looking at Acts chapter 27, I've kind of took my time getting around today, feeding the sheep and the fish and all that stuff. But in 27, we see that they have decided to go ahead and send Paul on to Caesar. So it says, when it was decided that we should sail to Italy, they delivered Paul and some of the other prisoners to one named Julius, a centurion of the Augustan regiment. Skipping on down, it says in verse 4, when we had put to sea from there, we sailed under the shelter of Cyprus because the winds were contrary. There the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing to Italy, and he put us on board. Now down in verse 9 it says, now when much time had been spent and sailing was now dangerous because the fast was already over, Paul advised them, saying, men, I perceive that this voyage will end with disaster and much loss, not only of the cargo and ship, but also our lives. Nevertheless, the centurion was more persuaded by the helmsman and the owner of the ship than by the things spoken by Paul. Who would ever listen to some Christian whenever you got these expert sailors and people who own ships, business, and all those things? Well, let's look down a little further. It says, verse 14, but not long after, a tempestuous headwind arose called Euroclydon. Now they get into it. They're running into weather. In verse 19, it says, the third day, we threw the ship's tackle overboard with our own hands. Now neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small tempest beat upon us. All hope that we would be saved was finally given up. But after long absence from food, then Paul stood in the midst of them and said, men, you should have listened to me and not have sailed from Crete and incurred this disaster and lost. Don't you just hate it when somebody says, I told you so? Friends, sometimes we need to tell that to our, in a loving way, but to those who do not listen, we tell them that God says that's not going to work. God says that's not good. Now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. For there stood by me this night an angel of God, to whom I belong and whom I serve, saying, do not be afraid, Paul, you must be brought before Caesar, and indeed God has granted you all those who sail with you. Therefore take heart, men, for I believe God that it will be just as it was told me. However, we must run aground on a certain island. And so Paul has told them, listen, you didn't listen, but now listen, because God has heard and he has decided, but we're going to run aground. So they've lost all the ship, all of the cargo of the ship, all the equipment of the ship. And they're very worried, but Paul tries to give them hope. Sometimes running aground is hope. You know, I know there's many who are concerned about our nation, the things that are going on, and I continue to say we need to ask God to bless our nation. Some say, well, the way we are, we shouldn't be blessed, but sometimes running aground is a blessing. It will save the lives of those on the ship. And so maybe God is at work still yet in our nation. I pray that he is. I pray that you will realize that and continue to ask God to bless our nation, whatever it takes. Sometimes we may lose the ship, but lives will be saved. After all, as much as I love our nation, this is not my home. My home is in heaven. I pray that yours is also. This day, be mindful of that as you go through life and those around you, as you give them what God gives to you, and that is the wisdom that only comes from the Holy Spirit. Lead others to live a life worthy of the calling. Lead others to not make those mistakes, as we all do, and encourage them to honor him. Pray you have a great day. Know that you're loved. Looking forward to Sunday as we gather together. Know as always at Westview, hey, we're here for you. So you have a great day, and God bless.